Well, first of all, I knew I wanted my production to have a cinematic feel. Quentin Tarantino was a big inspiration for my project, as he wrote and directed the two most recent mainstream Western films, Django Unchained and The Hateful Eight. I wanted my production to feel more like a Tarantino Western film, as opposed to a film directed by Sergio Leone, such as The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, or any of the Dollars trilogy films, because I wanted my production to have a modern feel, despite taking place in the past. Of course, I have included aspects inspired by Sergio Leone in my production to ensure that I cement the genre of my production. Because when anyone thinks of a Western film, they usually remember the old spaghetti Western films, such as A Fistful of Dollars. And I wanted to make sure my audience knew that the iconic Sergio Leone directing style influenced this production as well. In short, I wanted my audience to know that my production was moving with the times and being modern, but it was still true to its roots of the spaghetti Western era. Quentin Tarantino despises digital filmmaking and primarily uses film when shooting his movies. I knew I wouldn't be able to shoot using film, but I tried to give my production that film look by shooting in 24 frames per second and adding black bars to mimic Panavision's anamorphic 2.35:1 aspect ratio. My opening scene was very much inspired by the opening scene of The Hateful Eight. There was other wooden statues around the forest that I was filming in, but I chose the owl statue as it reinforced the tone of the outdoors and nature. My opening scene and The Hateful Eight's opening scene both utilise the rule of thirds to make the first scene the audience sees visually pleasing. The next scene, where Roger hears the name Quinlan Mathis, was inspired by a scene in Django Unchained, where King Schultz is remembering a traumatic incident. I'll show you the scene from Django Unchained. In much the same way that King Schultz is remembering a horrible memory, Roger is doing the same. The short interrupting snippets of this mystery person act as an enigma code to the audience, as they don't know who it is or why he's significant. The way the clips of this mystery man come in short, sharp bursts over a clearly worried Roger connote the idea that this man is dangerous and powerful. This is further reinforced by the fact that he is smoking a cigarette, which is often a trait of evil characters in films, especially westerns. It is clear to the audience that Roger has a harrowing memory of this man, but they don't know why. That's how this acts as an enigma code. Inspired by Quentin Tarantino, I chose to do the death scene from the point of view of the victim. Quentin Tarantino does this a lot in his films, and I choose to do the same to act as homage to Tarantino. Another thing Tarantino does in a lot of films are crash zooms. He often pairs crash zooms with a sound effect to emphasize the zoom and add his own style to it. Attempting to follow the style of modern westerns by Tarantino, as opposed to the films by Sergio Leone, I decided to use crash zooms with sound effects on an exciting moment in my production. I did this to exaggerate the action of John pulling out a gun. I think the crash zoom is a great way to really grab the audience's attention and focus it on a specific part in the frame. I chose to do a freeze frame on my characters when introducing their names and actors. I changed their background and set the colour of it to a dark green olive colour. This was to follow in the typical Western theme of nature. I believe the olive colour gives a very naturistic and earthy feel. I was inspired by The Good, the Bad and the Ugly opening credits, where the main characters are introduced in a very similar way. For the backstory text, I decided to use a font similar to that of the Hateful Eight's font. In westerns, the characters seem to go about their business of killing and thieving from each other without any consideration for their town or people around them. The typical cowboy character is a gunner with one clear motive, who isn't afraid to use violence to get what he wants. The typical cowboy character falls under that of the caveman stereotype by Jackson Katz. I challenged this convention by adding a moral dilemma for the character of Roger Mathis. As Roger is being told he has to help track down his brother Quinlan by someone who wants revenge, it really adds that extra layer of morality, which isn't really seen in a lot of Western films. I reinforce this family relationship in the opening sequence by using a graphic match to show the brotherly bond between Roger and Quinlan.